Arkansas has made a change at offensive coordinator. We're here to talk about it. He is Blayne Gilmer. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Dan Enos out at Arkansas. Didn't he make it to Halloween? As an aside, always looking for sponsors on our channel, caroline.smith at southeastern14.com. Blayne, were you surprised Arkansas made a move at this juncture of the season?
No, and if everybody, tuned into our reaction show last night, Chris, as we're recording this on Sunday evening, on Saturday night, we do a reaction show to all the SEC games, and I believe I was the one that said, "Hey, this game against Mississippi State may have been the nail in the coffin for Sam Pittman, the Pittman era." And you said, "Well, maybe not," but you alluded to, I do think there could be a coordinator change. So Notre Dame, Chris Lee over here, predicted that Dan Enos was going to get canned today, and he did. So that's what happened.
You're familiar with the blind squirrel analogy, right?
Hey,
That's more what that was. But well, look, it was kind of common sense when you watched them play. I mean, I was watching that game Saturday, and I'm the last guy to tell you X's and O's wise what a guy should be doing, what a guy shouldn't be doing. But Louis Riddick was apoplectic watching that game, and that dude knows football, right? I have a lot of respect for him. He talked about their route concepts, their spacing, things like that. I think no rhyme and reason to the play calling. I don't know if that was I feel like that's a criticism, but we're 9 weeks in, and these things blur together at times. But point I'm getting, look, throw all that aside. I'm not the right guy to diagnose the whys, but I can tell you this. Arkansas is averaging, I think, 5 yards a play or under now. Look, this was a team that before the season started, 4.71 yards a play. Now, that is amazing after 8 games. We were talking about 2 guys potentially going to New York, right? And the fact that one of those guys is not there, Rocket Sanders, who barely played, was not effective when he did play, that's got a lot to do with it. Also, the fact that they can't protect their quarterback, KJ Jefferson. That one, to me, kind of out of left field. Sam Pittman's an offensive line coach that had some dudes back, Bo Limmer and company, who played a lot of football at a successful level in this league. That part of it is just a mystery to me as to how things fell apart. Look, when you can't block guys, bad stuff happens, and I get it. That sets you up for failure. But their inability to block to the degree that they can't, and the stats behind it are just stunning.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, and every coach has to shoulder blame. I'm not trying to give anyone a pass here, because as I said with the whole Shane Beamer thing and all the stuff, when people were asking, was he blaming his players and all that kind of stuff, I said, hey, when you're coaching and your players aren't doing something correctly, as I was told as a young coach, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. Those are the two things. So ultimately, coaches are responsible. However, I feel like Dan Enos was a sacrificial lamb here. I feel like this was basically a scenario in like think of an old mob movie, right? Where that somebody owes a lot of gambling debt, and what do? They don't come after you, okay? They go into your backyard and while you're gone, and they kill your dog and they put it on like your living room table or something. You know what I'm saying? That Dan Enos just happened to be the dog here, okay? Instead of to get Sam Pittman's attention, they said, hey, we're not going to get rid of you, but you better do something because we're coming for you. You know what I'm saying? That the message was sent, and he just had to get rid of Dan. Listen, no part of Sam Pittman, knowing what kind of guy he is, and knowing how much he's loved by that fan base, and how good he is to not only his coaches but his players as well. No part of him wanted to go into their facility today and tell Dan Enos that he was losing his job. I firmly believe that. No, not one part of him wanted to do that. But there are sometimes messages come from the top a little bit more that changes need to be made, and also things have to happen. And the reason I say that, Chris, is because I know this had to be cleared with people up top, because Dan Enos is now owed almost $3 million by Arkansas. And you can't just pull that trigger for a buyout like that for an OC without talking to the people who pull the purse strings up above you. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. That that took a little more of a turn that I wasn't quite expecting there.
The
But
reason I'm
yes,
saying he's
I
a
mean,
sacrificial lamb is because nobody could do anything with that offense, Chris. I
right.
know Lewis Riddick can say whatever he wants. If Lewis Riddick was trying to call plays with that offensive line and those receivers, listen, talent acquisition, if anybody, it's more on Sam Pittman than it is Dan Enos. He's the head coach. He's the one that's got to bring in people to replace the Traylon Burkses, the Matt Landers, the Jaden Hazelwoods of the world, and he didn't do it. Not to a
Yeah.
good enough ability. He's the guy that has to bring in people to replace the 3 offensive linemen they lost from last year. Didn't do it effectively. So ultimately, this falls at Sam Pittman's feet, not Dan Enos's, if you're in my opinion.
Well, and when you looked at the guys they got in the transfer portal, they were happy with them, but they were guys a lot of times that had played at lower levels. It's not like they're bringing in dudes from Georgia or places like that or Ohio State. And their NIL has been a topic of discussion. I'm not going to even begin to pretend I'm an expert on that, but feels like Eric Musselman's getting a lot of what he wants. You look at how they kill it in the portal with basketball, and I'm wondering if St. Pittman might not have the same kind of arrangements and booster support.
I don't know about that, but I do know one thing. You look at the talent acquisition is what I'm calling it side of things. Basically, like a general manager, you basically have to not only be a head coach, you have to be a general manager now, like in the NFL. Basically, treat yourself like Bill Belichick is for the Patriots, right? Bill Belichick's not only making sure all the game plans right and everything, but he's also the general manager for the Patriots. Well, that's what you have to be as an SEC head coach these days. So I mean, with what we've seen out of places like Colorado going in and pulling in a ton of guys from other levels that have had a good amount of success and things like that, you can turn over a roster fairly quickly, and you can also fill a lot of gaps fairly easily nowadays. And I think this goes a little bit deeper. Sam Pittman may need to beef up his inside of college football talent evaluation department, because now, Chris, all of these schools now, and I've heard Kirby Smart talk about it, Nick Saban talk about it, Brian Kelly talk about it. There are departments, there are people that are dedicated in each one of these SEC schools, and also Big Ten ones like Ohio State, all these others that are dedicated to watching the other players of college football, scouting them, taking notes on them and stuff like that. So when they enter the portal, they know if they're going to be interested or not, and also based on prior relationships, all this kind of stuff. So I think Sam Pittman has to do a little bit of internal reflection. You're going to see what Kenny Guyton can do the rest of the year. If Kenny Guyton goes in here and the former Ohio State quarterback, now the wide receivers coach at Arkansas, who's going to be taking over as the OC, if they go in there and they start running through people and getting way more than their 2.9 yards per carry right now that they're averaging, and they start protecting KJ Jefferson better, then yeah, everybody needs to say, man, was Dan Enos, I mean, was he like drinking on the job, or what was going on? But I mean, when it comes down to it, I don't think that's going to happen, because I think it's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's for Arkansas. And it has to be a big season of talent acquisition, off season of talent acquisition for Sam Pittman. That is, Chris, and you tell me if I'm misled here, if Arkansas feels like, hey, yeah, we can cobble up, 3 million to take care of getting rid of Dan Enos, something tells me that they can find 10 million that they would owe Sam Pittman, which is what his buyout drops to if they finish below 500.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's a little bit of a risk to do midseason. And look, I get it. The optics of that game with Mississippi State were so bad. I understand why. That Mississippi State's defense could not stop a nosebleed the last time we had seen it, and looked like the steel curtain on Saturday. But that's kind of one of those. If it doesn't go well when you make the replacement, it starts to become more about you. In other words, if he kept him the whole season, he sort of had we can make a change at offensive coordinator, see how that goes thing in reserve. And now he really doesn't.
Yeah, well, look no further. I've already mentioned Beamer in South Carolina before. I'll invoke him again in this. What did Shane Beamer do? He didn't get rid of Satterfield last year when everybody was wanting to get rid of him in the middle of the season, when everybody was just absolutely, uh, you know, up in arms about how South Carolina's offense. What he did was he took the play calling duties away from him, before that Tennessee game. They end up going off, and then they just parted ways after the year was over. He's now at Nebraska over there doing his thing as the offensive coordinator. So maybe you're right. Maybe that could have been a better way to say, hey, Dan, let you know this ain't gonna work out good. At the end of the year, you're gonna be gone. We're gonna finish you out here. Kenny Guyton's gonna call plays with you or for you or whatever going forward, and then we'll split ways at the end of it. But what that allowed Beamer and company to do last year was, what was all the hype and what was all the hope that South Carolina fans had?
Yeah.
It was, hey, we got a new OC and now Loggins. He's been in the NFL. We'll see what happens here with our offense. So hope springs eternal for every team in the offseason, but now you're almost in offseason mode in the middle of the year for Arkansas. I mean, fair point there in terms of the expectations of the.
You just hit the flip side of it. Let's say Shane Beamer doesn't make the move a year ago. They don't beat Clemson and Tennessee probably, and now that they're mired in the muck of a long season, probably the feel around the program is a little different. So maybe it's a chance for Sam Pittman to salvage something here, because I think with the way it started, and look, if they win a couple games, you can go back and say, oh man, we were close. We were 4 points from beating Alabama, I think it was, from memory, and several other games. The BYU game probably should have won.
3 points from LSU.
Yeah, I mean, you take a couple down the stretch, they'll get FIU. Florida's going to be tough. Auburn's going to be tough. Missouri's going to be tough in terms of the defensive matchup, but two of those are at home. You take 2 or 4 down the stretch, or maybe 3 or 4 better yet. And I think probably everybody leaves the offseason feeling a little different. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that was just such a gut punch, because they were, you really felt like if they won that Mississippi State game, then that would have put them at 3 wins, 3-5. And I think they had a real shot then to maybe make a bowl game, get some extra. Now I just think it's going to be almost impossible to make a bowl game the way that offense is playing.
All right, we talk about SEC football pretty much every day on the channel. Best way to catch it all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps our analytics. Do a show every day from 11 to about 11:45 Central. Got basketball coverage coming up. Allegedly, Arkansas is going to be pretty good in basketball. I know that comes as a shock. But we're here for all of that. Hope you'll be here for it too. For Blayne Gilmer, I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching us. Have a good day.